Okay, let's test these levels. 1, 2, 3, a bit too high. Bring it down a bit. Here we are. Okay, I'm recording from now on.
Okay.
Jesse, this podcast has finally made it into a pub. But this is out of hours because we can't mix alcohol and chat.
That's right.
Where are we? And what are we doing this morning?
Okay, we are currently in the pub that I run called the Prince Arthur, which is located just next to Old Street Station. We are an independent pub. I've been running it for about 4 years. And we are a Shepherd Neame pub, so we only have sort of craft Shepherd Neame beers from Kent, or local beers, apart from Guinness, of course. And it's a kooky little joint, fun little place.
I came across it by accident, just following the back streets.
Right.
It's not on a front street.
No.
It's behind some flats.
Yeah.
It's you have to search it out.
It's destination, not location.
Gotcha. You say you've run it for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's an independent pub.
Yes.
Define what independent means in terms of pubs.
So there's two real models of pub running. One of them is that you work for the brewery directly, so whether it's Tennent's or Shepherd Neame or any of the big Heineken, any of the big pub companies, and you pay them your rent and you buy their beer. Or there's the tenanted model, which is this one, where we rent the pub from Shepherd Neame, the only stipulation being we have to buy our beer from them. And then we can run it as we see fit. We don't have to be part of the Shepherd Neame corporate hierarchy in that sense. So
it's all, is it like a franchise? Is that the right word?
Well, I don't know the franchise. It's just a unique thing that they have in England for the bar business model, and that is the tenanted house. So
is it rare?
It's becoming rarer because I think most tenanted places come with the accommodation upstairs. They still have a flat. Whereas lots of pubs now, especially in London and especially in central London, have sold off the flat many years ago. So you're kind of just running a shop without the benefit of having the apartment upstairs. Yeah,
because as a punter, you always think if people live above the pub, that must be where the best parties happen. That must be where there's great times.
No parties happen. By the time we've finished, you do a 12-hour day, and by the time you finish, you're probably not having too many parties upstairs. I mean, I'm not saying that it never happens. Of course, I have friends and a social life like everyone else. But generally, you're pretty wiped out, at the end of the day, and it's just nice that your commute home is very brief. That's the main benefit of it.
So you do actually live above the pub?
Yes, I do, and it's
wow.
it's a great little thing that you have here because it's your house, it's your business, it's your shop, all at the same time. It's quite a neat little life to have,
That's amazing. That's amazing. So this has been your home for 4 years.
Yes.
And you're the general manager.
Correct.
What does that mean?
It means that I am in charge of every aspect of the operation of the business, including reporting to the directors. And I think a good general manager doesn't really speak to the directors very often, even if there's problems, because, you should be, left to your own devices, and that's generally, my bosses have been very good to me. They've sort of let me run this place the way I see fit. And, I meet with them once a month. And as long as we're making money and we're not blowing it, I think they've given me the sort of, what would you call that, the flexibility to kind of run this. You can see by the decor and stuff, I mean, this is all my own sort of creation, really.
Oh, brilliant. So you've actually got free range. So what we've got is we've got pictures on the wall. We've got kind of, it's not frosted, but it's slightly moulded glass.
Yes.
So people can't just stand at the window and peer in longingly.
Yes.
You've got some kind of new art. You've got signs up in big capital letters. You've got loads of board games. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually, I've just turned around. There's a whole stack of board games behind us. So you want people to stay here.
Yeah.
And exercise their minds.
Absolutely, and exercise their spirit and their, and their souls. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the pub is that it's such a, like I'm Canadian originally, I was born in Canada, and in North America we don't have this kind of culture where you have a place that you can come with your dog, your kids, your grandma, all generations come here, the rich, the poor, the middle class, the affluent, the less affluent, they all come here and they all can share a drink. It's also, because we're in the middle of this council estate here, it's like lots of different members from that community as well. So you get a sort of real mix of local news, like, of course you never talk politics in a bar, but, local news, and now, of course, the international news that's always going on at the moment, since we've been, obsessed with news non-stop for the last 4 or 5 years. So you get a lot of, interesting conversations and, and just generally nice people, that's the idea.
Running a well-run pub, you're the person behind the bar. You survey your estate from behind the bar.
Right.
People who walk in, all odds and sods, anyone and everyone is welcome.
Yes.
How do you maintain a good environment? You can't control who comes through the bar. And I've heard of pubs where, locals will dominate a certain section.
Right.
And then people feel a bit left out and they don't want to go to that pub anymore. How do you somehow maintain a balance where everyone feels welcome and can find their space here?
I think it's hard to say because it's sort of esoteric. It's, I don't think I can put my finger on what reason it is, but there is a formula. The music has to be the right level. It can't be too loud because people get annoyed and get louder and louder, and you have to have, I'm constantly, my staff are like, they drive them crazy, but I'm constantly like jerking the volume up and down depending on how many people are in the room and what the level is, because the secret is you just want to be able to hear the burble of conversation but not individual conversation. That's key.
Right. Interesting.
If you can hear an individual conversation at table 1 or table 7, then the music's too low, and if all you can hear is the music, then the music's too loud.
So I remember years ago hearing, and it might be an urban myth, that commercial pubs that are chasing the money turn the music too loud, so people have to shout, so they get thirsty, so they drink more.
Yeah, sure, that's the cynical way of looking at it, absolutely. Just like peanuts on the bar or any of those things. But I just think
peanuts being like it
very
drives you
salty, so it makes you drink, right? You know.
Scratchings.
Yeah, exactly. Anything salty, bartenders are delighted with. Just thank the Lord, they're eating that. But no, I just mean like, it's some places you could be cynical about that. I mean, I actually happen to think that the music is really an important part of coming into the pub. My boyfriend Jack, he actually does all of the music here. He's sort of quite dictatorial about the music, but he really knows his stuff. He's an amazing DJ, so.
And he gets the vibe.
He gets it, and he just did rare groove B-sides, a few crowd pleasers. We try and do something a little bit different. We don't want to just be playing commercial hits all the time, although you will hear some of those from time to time. But we're trying to do something that's a little bit more, a bit more rare groove, a little bit more. Oh, I haven't heard that one before. And the amount of people that come in here and try and Shazam what we're playing because they haven't heard it before is like, it's like a tribute to how good his musical playlist is,
I suppose that there is also that delicate balance between having a pub where people want to go because they know what they're going to get, and having a pub where you also want to slightly surprise people, do something a bit left field. It's a fine because you don't want to repeat. You don't want the same people coming in for exactly the same thing every day. I'm assuming you want to draw in new customers.
You want to draw in new customers, but you also want to give them a surprise when they come in and a reason to come back. And like I said, music is one of the aspects. Lighting is another huge aspect. I go into a lot of pubs and it's like going onto the surface of the sun. It's like bright. It's like God, Jesus, calm down, everybody. Like why do we need that? We're not in a prison drama here. We don't need the spotlight on us.
Yeah.
So it's like. That's another thing that gets people aggravated and changes the dynamic of a room. So if you have nice, soft lighting, reds, pinks, under-counter lighting, things that don't illuminate people's faces, people look prettier. At the end of the day, one of the main things you do when you go to a pub sometimes is you meet people that you might want to snog or, marry or whatever, right? So... you want them to look as the best they possibly can. And the only way to do that is no overhead lighting. Speak to Mariah Carey, she'll tell you. There's no overhead lighting allowed.
Oh, is that one of her rules?
Oh, absolutely. She can't go on stage if there's an overhead light. There's no way.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so...
we all look better in candlelight, don't we? It's that whole low lighting hides the floors.
That's it, exactly. So, that's another important aspect to the pub business. And then just service. If you go into... if you go into a bar and the bartenders are all really aggy and they're all stressed out, and they're underperforming or understaffed or whatever it is, you feel that as a customer, and that transfers directly into the room.
Yes, got you. There's that energy transfer, because there is that thing when you do sometimes you get increasingly aggravated as you wait for a bartender to see you,
right,
or just say, I'm
Acknowledge
coming.
you.
It's that acknowledgement. Do you put a lot of effort into training staff? Because how many staff do you have?
I guess we have about 10 part-timers who work a couple of days a week each, depending on the day of the week.
You've brought them in, you've employed them, you want to make sure they fit the bar and it works for them too. Yeah. What kind of training do you give them in terms of people skills or advice?
I think it's just cultural. We build the culture here, So when you come in here and you see me and everyone else and you're the new member of staff and, everybody gets a hello when they come in. Everybody gets an acknowledgement. I'll be right with you, sir. I'll be right with you, madam, when we're waiting at the bar. Because we know we're a small bar. We've only got 2 bar stations. So sometimes there might be a slight wait. But we punch above our weight in terms of efficiency here because we keep it happy. That's it. I mean, there's no stress. At the end of the day, we're not working in a hospital. Like if people have got to wait for 2 minutes, they wait for 2 minutes. That's life. But as long as you keep them happy, you acknowledge them, you've said hello, you make a little joke, whatever, and that's the only training I can offer. I mean, you either know that about hospitality innately or you don't. I don't think there's any training you can offer to somebody to say hello to them in a shop. I've worked in shops in lots of places, and you hire somebody, a new guy or a new girl, and if they're staring into the corner looking at their shoes, it's not going to work, right? That's just how it is. There's a way, of course, you could train somebody, oh, well, listen, Janet, now you have to say hello whenever the door opens. But that seems to me rather redundant, if you see what I mean, because you're in hospitality.
So you're a people person, that's kind of part of it.
And that's the culture I've built here, that's it. And you either get it or you don't. I'm not some corporate guy who's going to have okay, well, here's the training package, and this is, you come in here, this is an independent pub, it's basically a reflection of me. And so therefore, I hope that you look at that reflection in the mirror and then you act accordingly. I mean, that's it.
I remember there was a bar near me some years ago, and it was kind of like a new thing. It did distilling too. It was quite sort of trying to provide a new thing for the area. The bar staff were friendly, but they said the owner, because it was the pet project of a single person who was a very rich. The owner watches us on CCTV, so we're always being monitored. We never know.
More boring than watching my pub on CCTV.
Yeah, we never know when he's watching or not, so we can't, give drinks to mates, etc., etc. And that seemed to be the antithesis of what a pub should be. But how do you be a boss, but also be a friendly guide? I mean, is that a fine line to tread or not?
I guess it is. I think it's just a question of your particular style of management. I've worked for plenty of people like that who watch everything on CCTV. You have to snap to when they walk into the room and all this kind of stuff. And having worked for all those people in my life, I decided, I took a sort of, when I became managing places, which has been 20 million years now, I sort of made a choice, a conscious choice not to do that. Now, look, I still have to tell people off. I still have to be the hard guy sometimes and put on my dad voice. Yeah. That's normal. That's just part of doing business. But I don't think you have to operate in an atmosphere of fear. And I actually think, going back to our earlier conversation about atmosphere and how the staff react to the customers and vice versa, well, that kind of stuff actually has I would say, a directly negative impact on staff performance. At the end of the day, I tell my bartenders, look, we do a stock take every month. I know if you're stealing from me, but there's a difference between stealing from me and making me money. Now, if I see one of my bartenders doing a shot of tequila with the guys at the bar, well, I'm delighted, because that means I'm going to sell 10 more shots of tequila later, right? There's a sort of there's a magic formula, whereas
of course, when someone offers one for the bartender,
absolutely. Yeah. Or if she or he says to me, actually, I gave those guys 5 shots of tequila. They were buying big rounds. They'd bought, they've been in here. They spent 200 quid. Absolutely, because that might just encourage. That's not costing me really anything, right? As long as you write it down on the waste sheet, as long as you keep me informed about what's going on, you have the agency and the freedom here to do that. And I find it just has better returns in general in terms of staff welfare, in terms of customer experience, and in terms of me not stressing out about it all the time. We always return good stock takes here. Obviously every now and then you have a bad one. It happens. Somebody didn't count a barrel or whatever. But I've never seen. I've worked in bars where it's strict, and we still have a stock loss. And I've worked in bars like mine where it's not that strict, but at least there's a respect to what we're doing here. and the results are almost the same. So I'd just rather live in a world where I'm not an ogre and I'm not stressing out all the time about something that is quite hard to control at the bottom line anyway.
Now, you've risen to the top
Well, I don't know.
of a pub.
Yes.
You run a pub. You didn't have to take this route. You could have remained as part of the staff. What made you decide, I can do this and I want to do it my way? Was it, as it is for so many of us, seeing people above us who are not as good as they should be and thinking, actually, I could do that better? Or was it something else?
I just always loved hospitality. When I was a kid, I had a lemonade stand when I was 7 years old outside my mum's house.
Oh,
you
you were
know.
an entrepreneur from
Yeah,
the start.
I just loved it. I love having people in my house, and I love making dinner, and I just always liked it. So in a way, the pub, the British unique little thing that the pub is your house. So you are in my house in that way. So it is a kind of hospitality that's more homey than just going into a restaurant or a bar. So I suppose it appeals to me in that innate way, and as I said earlier, it's a reflection of myself, like the artwork, the decor, the music, the lighting, the welcome, that's how I would want to go into a pub. Now maybe that's just my formula, it's not the best one, maybe it doesn't work for everybody, that's okay, but I just, the one thing I appreciate about this job is that you do get to reflect yourself and be yourself. And I know that makes me sound like a complete narcissist, but no, I just mean I think people should have that opportunity in their lives anyway. Something that should be a little bit about them, and I think people do that in all kinds of ways. Whether you work in an office or you're a doctor or a fireman or whatever, you adorn your job with your own personal trinkets and your trinkets of life, as it were. You know what I mean?
There is also that thing that we all have when we're throughout our lives. We think, the perfect pub. How would I create the perfect pub? Everyone, it's one of those games we all play in our own heads.
That's
it's
right.
like, I'll do this lighting, I'll do this kind of music, and I'd have this kind of setup. But you're realizing it, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's very satisfying to see, especially that we've taken this pub. Obviously I took it over after COVID. I think all pubs were struggling after then. So we were able to make some big gains, immediately, because people started to come back to the pub and, go back to normal.
Did you know this pub beforehand? Had you been
No,
here before?
you know what? It's weird. It was a friend of mine sent me an Instagram post. I was coming to the end of a job that I'd been at for 5 years. I'm running this really very popular gay bar down in South London, but I was working until 4:00 in the morning. Having to commute all the way back to Finsbury Park.
That's a commute.
At 4 a.m, it's a hell of a commute. And
you wanted to ring the changes?
no, I hadn't, I was going as far as I could there. I wasn't going to be promoted anymore. I sort of had done,
Right.
I felt like I'd finished the project, as it were. So I was kind of looking for something else. And this little ad came through on WhatsApp, look at this Instagram post. And it was this little pub. And funnily enough, my first proper pub in London was in Hoxton as well. It was on Hoxton Street.
Because that's we are in Hoxton now.
Yes,
the
that's
area.
right. Yes, Hoxton /
Hoxton Old
Shoreditch.
Street.
Yeah, Old
Yeah.
Street. But that was a really wild, queer punk music venue that was also open till 5:00 in the morning. And now that I'm in my 40s, I've come back to Hoxton, and I have a pub that
And
shuts.
now we've got Scrabble.
I've got Scrabble, and I shut at 11 or 12 o'clock, and that's it. And I'm in bed. It's early to bed, early to rise. So in a way, it's kind of, this is like my third album, as it were.
This is great. This is your phase.
Yeah,
I like the way. Album. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so this is definitely my favorite one. It's my favorite pub that I've done, and and I was sort of considering it maybe being my last pub for a little while. I might have to do something else. I've been doing this for 25 years, so I've sort of been
That's
knocking
interesting.
the ball around.
So you think that maybe you need to take a break for your own understanding and
Yeah, and I just haven't ever done anything else. So I need to go whittle some wood in a shed in France or something, or learn how to build furniture or sew or whatever it is. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. I've been sort of thinking about what I could actually do. Isn't that a lifelong thought for all of us? What do I really want to do when I grow up? It's kind of and
it
in a
never
way,
quite ends, that conversation. That internal
No, and
monologue.
I doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to get back into hospitality ever again, or do something else, do another pub like this, another project like this, but it's just really a me question rather than what do I do. It's like what do I do? That's the real question. So, because I do have other skills, apart from hospitality, I just don't think I've ever been able to use those superpowers in the real world, So maybe I just want to do that. It might be that I end up back in a pub in 2 years' time. Who knows?
That's a really nice positive way of looking at it. You've got unused superpowers. We should all think like this.
Yeah, you're sort of like, I don't know, they're untapped, but. And maybe I'm crap at decorating. Maybe it turns out that I'm no good at whatever it is I end up doing, which will be fine. I don't mind that. Maybe I'm not going to be a carpenter, but I'd like to spend a couple of years trying to find out.
Great. Now, when I was standing at the door when I first arrived, I heard barrels being moved downstairs.
Yes.
Is it possible for us to go to the innards of the pub just
sure.
to physically look at it, because
Absolutely.
us punters never get there?
Yes, and the pub always looks delicious and lovely, and it's all well painted and clean.
And then you go
every
downstairs.
cellar I've ever been in, it looks a lot like this.
So we just walked into the bar and through a little door. We're going down some. Is this an old pub? Is this an old building?
1739 it was
Oh,
built.
fantastic! So, has it always been a pub?
Yes, but
amazing.
It also had.
So that's like 3 centuries of good times are within these walls.
Yes. I mean, I actually looked at the records, the old records of the pub, and one family actually had it for 4 generations. You can see the same name. Yes, they lived here, man and boy.
Oh my goodness.
And it was originally a much smaller pub. The Victorian extension is the glass that you mentioned earlier, so they added that with the balcony.
Right,
but
so they pushed it forward a bit.
Yeah, the hatch used to be on the street, so this is now inside the pub, this hatch.
Okay, and you're just, so you're tapping at the well where the barrels get dropped down when they're delivered.
But in the 1700s, this would have been street, but now it's inside the pub. So it's kind of a neat little thing. That's why you have to actually lift out the whole floor upstairs to get a barrel down onto the rack here. So
right. So barrels arrive on lorries. They get dropped through a.
We open up the front wall of the pub.
Right.
To take out a panel on the front wall of the pub.
Yeah.
Take up the floor.
Yep.
And then there's a hatch underneath, and then they drop the barrels down the slide.
And they drop the barrels down. You then somehow manhandle them down these steps because they land on a step.
No, they go down this wooden slide.
Okay, so there's. Oh, I see. Yes.
So the barrels.
Is that as a specific thing for pubs? So this is 2 pieces of wood.
So the barrel goes on here. Sliding down the
right, so it's 2 pieces of wood in parallel, almost like a stretcher.
Yes,
but
like a ladder. It's like a ladder without any.
And you slide them down. Right. So it's quite physical.
Yes, it's heavy. Well, the barrels weigh 50 kilograms, so you have to have a little bit of strength in your life.
This is a very low-ceilinged room, maybe
Yes.
due to the age of the pub. We're standing beside, I don't know, a dozen barrels. There's a very loud fan in one corner.
That's my beer cooler.
That's a cooling thing.
Yes.
I heard, and correct me if this is wrong, that the British, and you might not know this, I don't know, the British taste for cold beer was a very quick change in the 70s when package tourism went to Spain. Before then, we always drank warm beer, which is what Asterix and Obelix always joke about.
Yes.
Is the British drink
Asterix
warm.
and Obelix, 2 of my favourites.
Ah.
Yes, I think that it's just a question of how you keep it. I mean, in here, it is 13 degrees according to my 12 degrees it's just gone down to, which is what you want. That's your cellar temperature. That's about where you want it.
That's for all beer.
That's for all beer, because the real ale, so that's what they call the British warm beer, isn't really warm, it's just cellar temperature.
Right.
So it's not meant to be served ice cold.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be served, tepid. It's just meant to be about 10 or 12.
For some reason I thought it was supposed to just be room temperature.
No, 12 degrees is about as warm as you would want that beer to go, because otherwise it would spoil as well, right? Because it's a live bacteria reaction going on inside the yeast, right?
Yeah.
Whereas lager, so there's 2 things that happen with lager. One is that it should be cold. It tastes better when it's colder, like 5 degrees or below.
Yep.
But in order to do that, you'd have to have the whole cellar at 5 degrees, so that's why they invented those, which is called a flash cooler.
And you're pointing at another piece of equipment with lots of pipes coming out of it.
A grey box with lots of pipes coming out of it, and in here is a spiral. This is a whole block of ice, this machine, so it's about 1 meter by 1 meter
so
by 1 meter.
It looks like a fridge.
Looks a bit like a fridge, but the whole thing is a block of ice, and each of these pipes has one of the lines of beer, whether it be Guinness or Spitfire or whatever, going into it. It goes through a very tight spiral inside that block of ice, all the way down and back up.
So it kind of flash cools
and it. Flash cooler. That's it's a flash cooler.
So every time you pull a lever upstairs to pour a pint, it goes through this thing.
It goes from there across the top into here, cools down, and then back up to the tap. It takes, obviously, it's instantaneous.
How interesting.
But in there is how you get this beer from 12 degrees down to 4 or 5 degrees. In fact, this one is reading 3.2 degrees. So, and that one there is at 2.5 degrees. So there's, 1 or 2 degrees in it. It's never a perfect science, but you want the beer to definitely be below 5 degrees C.
And in terms of the barrels that have pipes on them, there's always one next to them waiting. Is that when you change the barrels, you just swap the pipes from one barrel to another?
You always have to have redundancy, and when you order, you always want to make sure that you're actually, even on a quiet week, you've got redundancy, because you never know when a busload of tourists are just going to show up and drink 50 pints of Guinness all of a sudden or whatever. So you always...
That's different. How long does it keep?
Well, lager that's sealed like that keeps for about 3 months. So you've got plenty of time.
lager is actually quite a good thing for a pub.
And it's got to hold it. Yeah, you can hold it.
And real ale?
Real ale only a week once it's opened.
Ooh,
and
so
even
you've got to think very carefully, constantly spinning those plates about which barrels are on, which
That's right. That's right. And you have to sort of try to think about, you're always planning for the next week. So that's why we love people when they book.
Oh.
We love bookings because then we know, we can see the future. We can say, oh right, we've got a big party coming in on Friday. We've got a big party coming in on Saturday. So the week before we need to order whatever, extra stuff. Or, I have a function room upstairs, so often I have a private party.
Okay, so there's another room apart from the bar?
Yes, there's a room on the first floor. But it's you can have specific customers who say, oh, we're going to order 12 bottles of Prosecco, it's our birthday. So you make sure that's in. Sometimes you get like the actual specific thing that they want, but you should always make sure you have enough for it. So for instance, this is the end of my week, and I still have
Monday's
my day that I order, so the beer will come in. Right. So I still have 1 barrel of each beer left because I won't get my delivery until Wednesday. So you have to have just enough to keep you ticking over, basically.
Right. So you never press the repeat button on
No, because every week is different.
Every week is different?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's difficult.
Yeah, you can never... I know I should always have 6 barrels of Guinness. Some weeks I only sell 4, so I order 4, but some weeks I order 5, and I sell 5, so that's it. But I've always got 6 because it could be that week where we do 6.
I should also mention the fact that on the flash cooler are 3 cups, silver cups, which seem to be awards.
They are. They're for our five-a-side football team. They actually came down because we were doing the Christmas decorations. They need to go back up, actually. But that's the five-a-side football team.
From the pub?
From the pub, yes.
I love the
multiple winners. There are 4 cups, 5 cups, actually. One of them is a little, a smaller trophy. But yes, they are for Old Street, Thursday Fives, summer 2019. So this one was back in 2019.
Great.
But
lovely that the pub's got its own football team.
Yeah, it's cool.
What fun. So that's a proper sense of being part of the community, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, let's go upstairs again.
Yeah, sure.
Leave the beer to its... I love the idea of 300 years of beer being held in that cellar.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
sometimes,
my goodness.
On a warm day, you can smell 300 years worth of beer, too.
In the walls and in the floor.
Yes. Who's this? Just a second, please. I've got someone at the door.
No problem.
Hello. Hiya. How you doing? Oh, wonderful. Thanks. Pardon me? No, don't worry about that. Sorry, thanks. Cheers, ciao.
You mentioned Canada.
Yes.
And the fact that it doesn't have this same pub culture I don't know why, but I thought it did.
No, North America doesn't. You can't take your kids to a bar.
Really?
No, you can't take your dog to a bar. There's very little generational.
It's bizarre.
It's not like, well, it's bizarre to you, but if North Americans coming in here and they see a rover sitting at the table, they think that's bizarre. When you go to Canada, dogs sit outside of restaurants. If you're eating.
Even when it's really cold.
It doesn't matter. Especially, I'm from Montreal. That's the coldest city in the world, apart from Moscow. Wow. So yeah, it doesn't matter.
So you come from a multicultural city because you've got 2 languages in one city.
Correct. Yeah, I speak French fluently. My dad was French Canadian. My mum was British. So I spoke French at school, and then 5 o'clock, when my parents came home, we'd switch to English. TV would be in French until then. School would be in French, everything else would be in French.
Amazing. So that it's a constant change all the way through the day.
Montreal is unique like that. It's one of the few cities. The funny thing is what happens is, of course, you get francophones and anglophones, as we call ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm an anglophone because I speak English at home. So what happens is you'll go out to dinner, so a francophone couple and an anglophone couple, and the anglophone couple will start speaking French in order not to be impolite to the French couple, and the French couple will of course speak English, so you have this completely backwards conversation where no one's trying to be impolite, but we're all speaking in our opposite language, even though we could actually.
That's very well mannered.
Yes, and in Quebec we also have a thing called Fringlish or Franglais, which is basically it's when we, if French Canadians forget the French word for something, just throwing in the English word is enough because everyone knows it. So it'd be, I don't know, je vais aller au supermarket avec mes amis. You use, it's like, even though it's supermarché, but you can just use that. Yeah. You just drop that in because it doesn't matter because everybody knows what it means anyway. So there's a very strange hybridization of French and English.
How do you, coming from a city like that and then you're in a city like this, there's obviously no sort of direct compare and contrast, two different worlds. Do you feel that London and the people who come into your bar represent a wider mix, represent a different kind of mix? Do we mix in the same way?
It's just different because of the history is different. Don't forget Britain was the colonizer or one of the colonizers of North America. So the whole attitude is different. The people who left Britain, France, the Netherlands and came over there, well, they had a completely different mindset. Most of them were in fear of persecution, religious persecution, etc., etc. So that's why when you go to North America, they're very enthusiastic about everything. They're like, yeah, let's build it, man, let's go. They're like that. Whereas British people, French people, are a bit more cynical. They're like, oh yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. Don't worry about it. It's just how it is. It's like, North Americans, Canadians less so than Americans, to be fair, but they have this concept of manifest destiny. They have this concept of it was all meant to be there for them. That's kind of built into the source when you're North American. You don't really, not that they're all white supremacist race, that's not the case, but it's just, it's as built into the source as the monarchy is part of being British. Hello, old boy, all that stuff, right? It's like, that's their culture. So that's what makes them unique.
And do the Anglophones and the Francophones in Quebec go to different watering holes?
Absolutely.
Oh, they do?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. There's a very big divide between the two people. Don't forget, there's 8 million people in Quebec. It used to be the most populous province. It's not anymore, I think. Yeah, Ontario is now the biggest province, but Quebec used to be the biggest one. And of the 8 million people in Quebec, 2 million of them live in Montreal, that's the big city, and maybe 500,000 speak English as their first language in the whole province, and the other 7.5 million people, especially the ones in the countryside of Quebec, in Saguenay and Lac Saint-Jean, and places like, none of them speak any English. It's going to a French country.
I had no idea.
All the signs are in French, the motorway signs, every petrol station, every shop.
I thought it'd be half-half.
No,
the Anglophone English are a distinct minority.
They are.
It's
the only time you can experience as a white person being an ethnic minority, in that sense. And it's not even ethnic; it's linguistic or whatever. But it's Quebec has this very strange thing. So Canada, after the French Canadians got their say in Parliament and had their own devolved government, of course, Canada became officially a bilingual country, right? Because of course the French had not been recognized for so long in our history, so of course they recognized French Canadians, so the Parliament had to be in both languages, you had to be able to file your tax return in English and French, all these different things. But Quebec is the only unilingual province. It's illegal to use English in Quebec.
No.
You can only use French. Yes, I had to go to school in French because my mother was an immigrant to Canada. There's no other way for me to go to school. I couldn't choose English school. No way. That's it. You have to go to French school. When any sign in Quebec must be in French, and if you're going to have it in English, it must be underneath and 30% smaller than the French sign.
30% smaller.
It cannot be equal or dominant or above.
Oh.
The official language
That's very
at work.
Interesting.
We have a French Gestapo in Quebec called the Office de la Langue Française, and they come to your shop or your taxi service or whatever, and they make sure that all of your signs are in order, that they are all in French, and correct French, by the way. If there's misspelled, they'll tell you that as well.
Right.
And that you're speaking French to your staff, not English. So I used to carry on my morning briefings. All the girls I work for were Anglophones, so in my shop in Montreal. So we're doing our morning briefing, and one day a woman came in from the OLF, and she started looking at all my tickets on the clothes. It was a clothing shop. And she came to me and said, "Excuse me," in French, of course, "your tickets are not in order," which is a very lovely French way of saying it. And I said, "Oh, pardon, madame, excuse me, madame, what do you mean my tickets are not in order?" And she said, "Well, you've used the word sweatshirt here, which it's, so it said sweatshirt, petit, moyen, grand, small, medium, large, right? Those are the tickets, they hang on the thing." And I said to her, "Oh, well, madam, I didn't know there was a French word for a sweatshirt. I thought that's just, un sweatshirt." And of course she said, "No, le mot, c'est coton ouaté. The word is coton ouaté." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she says, "You have 24 hours to change this ticket, otherwise you're going to get a fine." So I had to go back into the...
Blimey.
Yeah, it's like that. And funnily enough, then a French girl came up and she said, "Excusez-moi, où sont les sweatshirts, s'il vous plaît?"
Yeah,
right away. So I was kind of like, okay, thanks a lot. But anyway, yes, that's
fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's
I had no idea.
It's a really wild thing. But I've brought British people to Quebec. We go on holiday. "Oh, come to Montreal. Let's go to Montreal." And they land there and they go, "Why is everything in French?" Because it's like American France. That's the best way to describe it. It's like North American France.
Wow. And then, so coming over here, you're in a British pub in a multicultural city, in an area which is kind of mixed up. Does your heritage, your own family heritage, give you an angle on being here, running this pub, dealing with people, not having a set identity because you're used to balancing two identities?
Yeah, I think being bilingual is one of the best gifts I've ever got given by accident. Just because of a freak of where I was born, because it makes you, it's like you can read the music. Do you know what I mean? Like, even when I go to Spain, Italy, I don't speak either of those languages, but because I speak French, I can see the words. I can look at a French newspaper, a Spanish newspaper, Italian newspaper. I get what they're trying to say. I might not know all the grammar or whatever, but it's the same music, right? And when you sometimes go traveling or just living in Montreal or anywhere I've been, having to switch between those two identities, those two sides of yourself, because French Jesse is probably distinctly different from English Jesse. He has different tastes and a different level of vocabulary and whatever else.
So do you think your character actually changes
when
you're in French?
Not distinctly, but French people are unique from English people. They have a way of speaking. They have a way. They have a mindset. So in a way, you are. I'm never going to be the deepest French guy that you're ever going to meet, but I can relate to them in a way that perhaps a unilingual person cannot, and that's, I guess, the insight that I get, for free, basically, which is a nice thing to have. And of course, it's helped me out in pubs. Many of my customers, of course, in London are French. We have, 250,000 French expats living in London.
Yeah, I've heard that the French are the biggest European expat community in London. Is that true?
For sure. They have a département here when they have an election. They have to have a special, place where they go.
Département?
Yeah, where they go and vote. Because there's so many of them. They're quite a significant voting bloc. So
they must be joyous when you speak to them in French from behind a bar.
Well, also I'm Quebecois, so my French is like an Australian accent is to an English person, so they love it because because it's called la joie. It's the accent in Quebec is the accent that the poor working class people of France spoke 400 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay,
so
it's quite a distinct dialect of French.
The accent you hear in France was unified in about, I can't remember which Louis, one of the Louis, they unified the French language, which is why there's not the same regional spread. Like in England, you have this incredible spread in this tiny little square island like it is, between, you can go 200 miles, and the accent is completely wild. It's not like, "Hello, sir, how do you do?" It's completely like, "All right, boy, yeah, you go." You're like, "What is this?" Right? Whereas in France, it's generally, that's how they all talk, because they've unified that. Whereas Quebec, because all those people left 300, 400 years ago, and they all spoke like country people, Well, that's how you ended up. That accent evolved completely separately and has its own sound and its own dialect and its own new words that they create, which are not French words. They're Quebecois words, right? You know, and the Quebecois don't use words like the French do. You cannot say weekend in Quebec. That is,
le weekend.
Le weekend. No, sir. It's la
As
fin.
the French do.
It's la fin de semaine. Oh. Right? You cannot say shopping. It's le magasinage, because they do not want English to wipe out their language. The French are safe. There's 80 million French people, and they're surrounded by other French people. In Quebec, there's 8 million French speakers, and we're surrounded by 360 million English speakers. English TV, English radio, all being beamed in all the time. So they are very protective of, which is why they have such draconian language laws, but they are very protective of the French culture in North America, because in North America there's only one place where you speak French, everybody speaks French, and that's there. And if they just left it without any intervention, you could see the whole of the French culture, you know, within a few hundred years, essentially be assimilated into the much larger North American culture, which is what they're trying to avoid. Whether they're being paranoid with their laws or not, I mean, that's a different question. You could ask some Quebecois, they'll tell you one thing, and me, I'm not a nationalist, I'm Canadian, I'm not Quebecois, you know, that's the way I see myself. But I think a lot of the nationalist movement would tell you that that's definitely what's going to happen, if you see what I mean.
And coming back to this pub here, 300 years of history, if so, it almost mirrors the time that Quebec has kind of...
It's older than this pub predates the American Revolution, 1776. So
if a Frenchman came into this pub, which they probably wouldn't have done 300 years ago,
no,
given relations
during the war, I think usually there's a war between England and France. So it's only recent that we stopped doing that. So it's a fairly recent thing. I think they've been warring for like 1,000 years. So, but yes, I mean, yes, a Frenchman, all men, whether French or otherwise, are welcome here. You know, that's the thing. That's the idea. You know, we're not here to judge you. We're not here to discriminate. You know, it's supposed to be open as long as everyone is treated with tolerance and respect. I think that's all you can expect in a pub, and we'll treat you the same. That's how it should be.